Yin opened her eyes slowly, waking up and stretching her muscles in bed. She noticed her husband was still fast asleep. The clock showed 7 in the morning, so there was still time to let him sleep. Finally, she got up and walked to the bathroom to freshen up before heading to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. As usual, for breakfast, she always prepared light food, considering her husband never ate heavy meals. Several sandwich slices were now ready on a plate, and it was time for her to wake up her husband. As she entered the room, she saw her husband was already awake. Approaching the bathroom, she heard the sound of water splashing, indicating her husband was now showering. Yin immediately took the initiative to prepare her husband's work clothes. She opened his wardrobe and laid out underwear, shirt, trousers, suit and tie on the bed. A few minutes later, the bathroom door opened and Jungkook emerged, wearing only a towel wrapped around his waist. Seeing this sight, her breath caught in her throat and she quickly averted her gaze. They had been married for a month, but due to their somewhat distant relationship, intimate matters like this were still a bit taboo for both of them, especially for Yin, who remained shy until now. In their 1 month of marriage, they had only been intimate twice. 1 week was hindered by her period, while the remaining 3 weeks only saw 2 instances of intimacy. So it was understandable that Yin still felt uncomfortable seeing her husband in his current state, wearing only a towel around his waist. But it seemed different for Jungkook, who appeared nonchalant. He immediately removed his towel and put on the underwear laid out by his wife on the bed. "Get dressed. I'll be waiting for you at the dining table. Breakfast is ready." "Okay." Yin was waiting for her husband to come out of the bedroom, and shortly after, the handsome Jungkook appeared in his suit, ready for work. He approached the dining table silently and took a seat. Yin had prepared breakfast for him along with a cup of hot coffee beside his plate. Today was Saturday, her chance to invite Jungkook to go to the movies. Besides, her husband had promised to accompany her to the cinema tonight. There was a new horror movie she really wanted to watch. "Jungkook, are we still going to the movies tonight? You promised you'd go with me tonight." "Yes. I'll come home early." "Great. I'll get ready before you get home." "What time will you be back?" "At 5. "Okay, I'll be waiting for you." "I'm ready." Jungkook stood up from the dining table, followed by her. She walked him to the front door of the apartment. "Take care on the way." Yin quickly gave Jungkook a brief kiss on the cheek before stepping back, giving him her sweet smile. Jungkook nodded briefly, opened the door and left for work. The clock showed 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and Yin began to get ready to go out with Jungkook, as they had promised earlier in the morning. Yin had changed her clothes and got ready to go, looking beautiful. She was sitting in the living room, playing with her phone, hoping her husband would come home soon. 2 hours later. It had been 2 hours of waiting, and it was already 6 o'clock, but Jungkook still hadn't come home. She glanced at her phone screen and saw a message from Jungkook that had come in an hour ago. "I'm still in a meeting, might be able to come home in a few minutes." Because Jungkook had said so, Yin continued to wait. It was not the first time Yin had impatiently checked the time, waiting for Jungkook to come home. This was actually their second attempt to go watch a movie. The initial plan was last Saturday, which failed because Jungkook was busy, and now this Sunday was still hindered by Jungkook's additional meeting with clients outside the office, which delayed their plans until this Saturday. Would it fail again? Yin knew her request was trivial to Jungkook, but considering they were still newlyweds, Yin wanted to build a closer relationship and spend more time with her husband. Even though they got married because of their parents' arrangement, Yin tried to call Jungkook, but he refused to answer her calls. Yin sighed in frustration. Eventually, she went back to their bedroom and changed into casual home clothes, leaving her makeup on. Her stomach began to growl with hunger as they were supposed to have eaten out before going to the movies. Quietly, Yin ended up eating alone at the dining table. Since they had planned to eat out, Yin hadn't prepared any food for dinner tonight. Eventually, she cooked something simple for herself. Usually, Jungkook would have already eaten out with clients or colleagues. The food supplies were running low, with only some raw eggs and a few packets of instant noodles left. They also hadn't done their grocery shopping yet, as they were supposed to do their monthly shopping for kitchen and household needs this week. Finally, Yin could only eat instant noodles for dinner tonight. Her dreams of a nice dinner out were shattered by the reality of eating instant noodles. She considered ordering food, but it would take at least 20–30 minutes to arrive, and she was already very hungry. This time, she felt more sensitive than usual, harboring some resentment toward her husband's behavior. She had always tried to understand Jungkook's constant busyness. Yet, deep down, she couldn't deny that she also craved attention from him. Yes, even just a little bit. For instance, if he really couldn't make it tonight, couldn't Jungkook call her personally to let her know, "I have a meeting soon, don't wait up for me, I'll try to come home as soon as possible," instead of just sending a brief text message? Worse, when Yin tried to call him, he outright rejected her call. She couldn't help but compare her husband to her father. Countless times, she had seen her father answer her mother's calls, even if he was in a meeting, just to tell her so. Yin wished her husband could do the same, instead of ignoring her calls. Yin thought, of course there's a difference between my husband and my father. My father loves my mother, but my husband doesn't love me. So what are you expecting, Yin? Yin ate in silence, savoring the instant noodles, but despite her efforts to hold back, a tear or two finally fell. Several hours later, Yin spent her evening tinkering with her phone while sitting on the porch, enjoying the night air. Soon, she heard the sound of the front door opening and the noises inside the house indicating her husband had returned. Unlike her usual self, Yin didn't rush to greet him. She stayed where she was, absorbed in her phone, ignoring him. Jungkook immediately sensed something was off. His wife always greeted him warmly and offered coffee, but this time, he entered the house without any welcome. He sat on the sofa, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of his wife. He guessed she might be in the bedroom, bathroom, or on the balcony. A feeling of guilt settled over him. He knew their plan to go to the movies tonight had fallen through again because of his work, but he hoped Yin would understand his busyness and not make an issue out of it. After a few minutes of sitting quietly on the sofa, Jungkook decided to check the bedroom. Finding it empty, he then headed to the balcony. As expected, Jungkook saw Yin sitting alone, busy with her phone. Finally, Jungkook approached and cleared his throat to get his wife's attention, but she didn't turn around, as if she were deaf and didn't hear him. Why are you sitting alone so late at night? Of course I'm sitting alone. Who do you think I would be sitting with? Jungkook furrowed his brow, hearing the unusual tone in Yin's voice, and he went back to the bedroom, leaving Yin behind. He knew she was angry for some reason, and he felt frustrated, thinking his wife couldn't understand his busyness. I'm busy with work, not having an affair. Can't she understand that? Jungkook then changed his clothes, cleaned himself up, and soon after went straight to sleep because he was very exhausted today. Right now, he really needed some rest. Jungkook woke up because he had slept enough. He looked at the clock and saw that it was already 8 o'clock. Today was Sunday, so he hadn't set an alarm on his phone. He wanted to sleep as much as he needed. He looked at the other side of the bed and saw it was empty. His wife must have already woken up and was probably preparing breakfast for them. Unable to deny his curiosity, Jungkook got up and began to clean himself up to leave the bedroom. Now, Jungkook was dressed in his casual home clothes and looked refreshed after his shower. He left the bedroom intending to have breakfast and saw the kitchen was quiet. His wife wasn't there, but there were some sandwiches and a glass of coffee on the dining table. Jungkook sat down at the table and had breakfast in silence. He hadn't felt such an atmosphere of quiet since he married his wife. Where could she be this early in the morning? His curiosity began to grow. Not long after, he heard the apartment door open, and his wife entered with quite a few shopping bags. Yin placed the bags in the kitchen and began organizing them without even glancing at her husband who was eating. Why did you go shopping alone? Weren't we supposed to go together today? It's fine, I can go by myself. Jungkook realized that things were not okay between them. It seemed there would be a cold war after this. To avoid making the situation worse, Jungkook chose to remain silent. Night finally arrived and Jungkook was ready to go to bed again after spending the whole day in his workplace. It was almost 10 p.m. and he noticed Yin still hadn't entered their bedroom. This time, Jungkook realized the situation he wasn't aware of. It seemed Yin chose to sleep in the other bedroom, or perhaps she hadn't been sleeping with him since last night. Jungkook sighed in frustration. Why did his wife choose to magnify what he considered small issues? Not wanting to dwell on it further, Jungkook decided to close his eyes. Tomorrow morning, he had to wake up early and head to the office. Regardless, he needed his energy for tomorrow's preparations. In the other room, Yin was wrapped in a thick blanket, feeling her body shivering. It seems she has caught a fever tonight. Since this afternoon, she has felt that something was wrong with her body, but she ignored it. Now, the fever has truly hit her. Her head aches, and her joints ache. Instantly, her mother's face appears in her mind. She misses her mother. She wants to go home. Usually, in times like this, her mother would be by her side. But this time, she's sick and alone, with no one to comfort or care for her. Unconsciously, tears wet her cheeks, not just from holding back the fever in her body, but also from the loneliness she's feeling now. What about her husband? Yin doesn't want to hope anymore. He doesn't even want to bother calling her, let alone taking care of her when she's sick. Especially in a condition like this, she knows Jungkook would do it out of obligation, not because he wants to. Finally, that night couldn't find peace. She tried to close her eyes to sleep, but the ache throughout her body only intensified. Jungkook exited the room as usual, dressed in his suit, ready for work. He glanced at the dining table briefly, and indeed, there was no food prepared for him. He sighed softly and left the apartment straight for the office. He would have breakfast at the office. That's what he thought. 3 hours later, Yin emerged heading to the living room. She sat on the sofa after grabbing a glass of water, noticing it was already 10 in the morning. It seemed she really had to go to the hospital today. Her body couldn't compromise anymore. Jungkook was busy with his tasks when his phone vibrated in his pocket. He immediately took it out and saw that his mother was calling. Without hesitation, Jungkook answered, and his mother's voice came through. Jungkook, how are you, dear? Are you busy right now? I'm at the office, Mom. What's up? Actually, I've been hospitalized for a night. I didn't want to tell you at first, but I miss you so much now. Can't you come here? What's wrong, Mom? Why are you hospitalized? Don't worry too much, dear. It's just my gastric acid acting up. Okay, Mom, I'll come right away. Jungkook entered the room and saw his mother sitting back on the patient's bed. Upon seeing her son's arrival, his mother smiled sweetly. Jungkook approached and sat beside his mother. They finally expressed their longing while chatting lightly. How is Yin? Is she doing well? How about your relationship? Are you both okay? We're both doing well, Mom. She's fine too. His mother looked relieved to hear the news from her son, though she couldn't help but worry, knowing that their marriage was arranged by her and Yin's mother. All right, Mom, I have to get back to the office. Okay, take care on the way back. All right, take care of yourself. After bidding farewell to his mother, Jungkook immediately left the room and walked along the hospital corridor. He wanted to get back to the office as his workload was piling up today. However, before he could leave the hospital building, his eyes suddenly caught sight of someone sitting there. He squinted to see if it was really Yin, his wife. Why was she at the hospital? And why was she alone? Jungkook decided to postpone his plan to return to the office and wanted to make sure what his wife was doing here. Shortly after, the hospital staff called Yin's name, and she got up to approach the pharmacy counter. It turned out she was waiting in line to collect her prescription medicine. That meant she had finished her checkup and was just waiting for her medication. After Yin stood at the counter, the staff promptly handed her several medications. She then headed towards the exit, and that's when Jungkook quickly caught up to her and grabbed her hand. Jungkook was startled as he felt her hand was so warm. Yin was also surprised by the sudden touch from someone, almost screaming before realizing it was her husband. Why are you here? I should be asking you, are you sick? Jungkook cursed himself inwardly. Clearly, his wife was sick. He noticed her slightly pale face, red eyes, and her warm hand. What he couldn't accept was the fact that he didn't know his wife was sick and went to the hospital alone. Yin remained silent, not answering. She didn't expect to meet her husband here either, feeling curious about why Jungkook was suddenly at the hospital, but she wasn't in the mood to ask right now. She continued walking, leaving Jungkook trailing behind. As they exited the hospital building, Yin saw a parked taxi and intended to approach it, but Jungkook quickly pulled her towards where his car was parked in the parking lot. Why didn't you tell me that you were sick? Yin remained silent, not even looking at him. Her gaze was fixed out the window beside her. Yin, I'm asking you, can't you answer? What's the point of telling you? You don't even care about me. Why would you say that? Is it because of what happened last Saturday? Because we didn't make it to the movies and you blew it out of proportion. Hearing his words, her head began to ache even more. She didn't want to argue this time. Finally, Yin remained silent, not responding. Meanwhile, Jungkook, seeing his wife's silence, grew more frustrated. Didn't I already inform you through a message that I had a meeting? And I tried to finish it as soon as possible, but there were still many things that needed to be done. Yes, I know. You have been a good husband. It's my fault for expecting more from my own husband. Somehow, hearing his wife's sarcasm made his heart ache. He realized that he still wasn't a good husband. It would be better if Yin just said what she really wanted. Being sarcastic like this, saying he was a good husband, when he knew he wasn't. Honestly, even now, his guilt is overwhelming. He felt truly useless. I'm sorry, you don't need to say that. I know I haven't been a good husband. I'm really useless, aren't I? I didn't even know that my wife was sick and had gone to the hospital alone. Yin remained silent, not responding to what her husband said. Her head was pounding, and her body temperature was making her feel too weak to argue. She leaned and tried to close her eyes. She needed to rest. Beside her, Jungkook couldn't stop looking at Yin, who looked so weak. His guilt was overwhelming. What had happened to his wife during their silent treatment since yesterday? One night not sleeping in the same room, and suddenly meeting at the hospital. It was enough to shock Jungkook. Now that they had arrived home, Jungkook reached out to hold Yin's hand to lead her to their bedroom. However, Yin brushed his hand away and intended to enter a different room. Jungkook couldn't take it anymore. The silence in the car was enough. Now he truly wanted to change the state of their relationship. Suddenly, Jungkook lifted Yin in a bridal style and carried her to their bedroom. Jungkook, what are you doing? Put me down right now. Jungkook remained silent until they reached the bedroom. He gently laid Yin down on the bed. I've had enough of feeling useless. I want to be a good husband to you now. Yin was silent at his words. She lay there while Jungkook sat next to her, his eyes gazing at her softly. Let's stop giving each other the silent treatment. I'm sorry, baby. I should have been more attentive to your feelings. We didn't know each other before suddenly getting married. Naturally, we're still adjusting to each other's different personalities. Others date first and then argue. We barely knew each other before getting married. And instead of arguing, we resort to silent treatment. What makes you uncomfortable with me? I don't want to be a burden to you. Why do you feel that way? You never call me and you don't answer my calls. It means I'm not important to you, right? Why can't you just let me know directly? I'm sorry, I didn't think of it that way. I thought you wouldn't mind. I initially thought it was just a small issue, just about us missing the movie. But it turns out you were holding on to other frustrations too. Yes, and you ignored me, not clearing anything up. Jungkook smiled slightly. He then leaned down and kissed her forehead, holding the position for a while as he gently caressed her hand. Afterward, Jungkook pulled away and sat back down. I ignored you because I didn't want to make things worse. Wouldn't it have been worse if we both got emotional and ended up in a full-blown fight? Yin remained silent, but her heart started to calm. She had never seen this gentle side of him before, and now she was beginning to feel it. This was progress in their relationship, and Yin needed to appreciate this positive change. There's no point in keeping silent any longer. What's the purpose? They had just gotten married and it was natural to adjust to each other. I want you to spend more time with me. I often feel lonely. Yes, I'm sorry. Sometimes I forget that I'm not single anymore and that my wife is waiting for me at home. But from now on, I promise it won't happen again. I'll keep you informed more often and spend more time with you. Jungkook said this while gently stroking his wife's hand, which still felt warm. Yin smiled weakly and nodded. Not long after, Jungkook took out his phone from his pocket and called someone. Yes, sir. Please handle all my work and postpone all meetings for a week. Is something wrong, sir? My wife is sick, and I don't want any interruptions this time. Understood, sir. With that, Jungkook ended the call. Why are you taking a week off? Are you expecting me to be sick for a whole week? Of course not. I hope you get better soon. After that, we can spend time together. Go out and do whatever you want. Thank you, hubby. So get well soon, baby. After that, we'll have plenty of fun together. Yin nodded weakly while smiling.